Well, hey, everybody. Monkey Puzzle here, and it is time for episode number 8 of our IronMine server cluster series, which is the continuation of a bunch of other series, but all in one now. And today, we are still on Ragnarok, and I wanted to do some Rex breeding as promised. We did a bunch of Rex taming previously, but now it's time to breed them up. And this episode, I'm going to try to do it in a way that's a bit more advanced than I have in the past. But this is not going to be like an everything you need to know episode because I can't pretend to do that yet. I'm still learning a lot. This is kind of going to be you coming along with me as I figure out the best methods, and maybe in the comments you guys can tell me some of the things that I don't know or I've missed. But I want to try something new today. Let's turn this on so we can see everybody's name. Usually I turn that off for clutter, but today that's going to be pretty necessary. So yeah, here are the end result of my Mega Rex breeding program. It looks like B-Fun has one of his own going on, but no, it actually starts over here. Episode a couple back where I started taming a bunch of Rexes, and I got most of these guys here. And I started breeding them, and even though they're all colorful here, I got just gray ones so far from those guys. But I don't really care that much about color. I want stats. I know a lot of people do breed for colors, and there are some colors here, but we'll see if they actually end up mixing in. So yeah, a bunch I've tamed, a bunch that I've bred so far, and then some that were contributed by other folks on the server. So Bison contributed these, and they're beautiful colors and really high stats. We've got reds and greens. And this one here, I think they all have pretty much the same stats, which is about 11,000 health and 516 melee, which is amazing. It's really good. And then James contributed some, and they're over here. And their stats are equally amazing. The melee is 516 and the health is 16,000. So same melee. A bit better on the health, and quite, in fact, substantially better on the health. And all in all, some amazing Rexes. So this is a great contribution to the breeding program. This could actually be sort of an end result breeding program right there. So yeah, all of those are probably good enough for what we're breeding them for, which is for the boss fights, both here and on the other maps. And some of them may not be appropriate for Rexes. I'm still learning about the boss fights, something I've never done before. But I figure we might as well go in with the best Rexes possible. And plus it gives, opportunity to learn a bit more about Ark breeding. So to do this, I'm using a program that I hadn't used before called Ark Smart Breeding. So let me pull that over here. Okay, there it is. And in here, this is the library part of it right here, this tab. And so far, I've entered all the Rexes that I just showed you, I just ran past, except for one, the one I tamed last episode. And we're going to enter that one as an example. But you can see it's got all their names, it's got the tribe and owner, and then it's got the sex and all the different stats. But here, it's recording them not as the number, the total number that the stat has, but more the number of levels that are put into each stat, which is really useful. Basically, Ark distributes levels among the different stats when it's wild, and then once it's domesticated, you can then choose to level up the various ones if they can be leveled up in that species. And in breeding, you can combine these various level distributions, and sometimes you can get mutations where they increase. So we can sort by these. So if we sort by HP, you can see that the ones James contributed, they are at 56 levels put into HP and 52 levels put into damage. And if we sort all the dinos by top percentage, those come out pretty much on top, except for this one named Oogie, which is a product of the breeding of those. So we can actually look at the pedigree of Oogie and see that it was bred from two of James's Rexes, and they combined, and it got all the best stats. Well, this one actually already had all the best stats. So nothing really new came out of that, except that there's another Rex. So what I want to do right now is extract the stats of the new wild one. So let me see if I move this over a little bit. That is me. So let's get over here and get into its inventory. Now, I tried using this program in the past, and I didn't follow through with it because I couldn't get this part to work, which I think is the most useful part of that, is being able to enter the levels automatically. Recently, I've been making folders in their inventories, listing all the stats, because the folders are a good way to make little notes in here that you can see just by doing that. And you can add, put in the amount of the HP. I can't drag that window, but anyway, I'm not going to do that this time because now I have this other program to do that with. And anyway, I started to say it didn't work for me. This works by using OCR, optical character recognition. So it actually reads the text from here that way. And before I had the GUI of the inventory down. Let me just show you that real quick. So in the options menu, there is the UI general scale, and I had it turned down because I feel like this is generally too big for me. And when I get the inventory screens and stuff, I like it a little bit smaller. But that was keeping the optical character recognition from working. And there's a way to adjust that in the program, but it's a pain in the butt. And it was much simpler just to turn my UI general scale all the way up. So if you find it's not working, experiment with this and see if that happens to be the cause of it not working. I turned that back up and it started working right away, as I will demonstrate. But I have to get back in this guy's inventory, get the program back up, and then we'll say read values from Ark window. And there it is. It got all the levels from it except the torpidity. So let's see what's wrong with the torpidity. Let me see. First, I'm going to try it again. And that time it worked. Sometimes you got to try it a couple times. It can be a little funky, but sometimes it gets a number wrong and you'll have to just fix it here. Or sometimes there's a number of possibilities the way the levels could have been distributed. And then you'll have to click on that and it'll give you some choices. And if you know the level that this was, which I know it was 168, and you select that, that will be over here. Then you can fix it. But we don't need to fix it here. They're all fine because they're all in green. Yellow means there were a couple choices possible. So here I actually can demonstrate that. So I know that it was a wild level 168 tamed at 99% efficiency. So I'll select that and do that. And now, I guess they're not all green, but we know at least that it's correct. So you can see now, not only does this record the amounts of the stats, the straight numbers of the stats, but it also figures out the wild level distribution, which would be very difficult for me to do. And we can see that it also gives a little chart here on just giving you the various weights that were given when they were distributed. And this one was very high in damage and very high in weight. So weight is not necessarily a stat that we're going for right now, but damage is. So this is up to 44, which is pretty good for a wild one. Not as good as the bred ones from James and Bison, but it's not a bad start. Now, this number is also not as high as it could be even for that, because this one was a wild tame, so it didn't get the imprinting bonus that would make that number bigger. Now, the imprinting bonus does not carry on in breeding, but it does make that number bigger in the end if you do imprint them. So that one's in there. So we got to record this, put it into our library. Now, I've been using a random name generator, just the one I found first in my Google search here. So right here, I just been selecting the fantasy ones like that. And then we can go ahead and generate a name. We just have to change this first, the first name only, and it could be either gender, and we'll go ahead and generate a name. Wymock. Gugog. Okay, Gugog is cool. So let's send this away. And then this one's name will then be right here. We're going to name it So this is a product of breeding with some other folks' Rexes. So all of those, I'm going to just make IronMine Rexes because we're going to use them together for the breeding. I'm not going to personally claim them all because this is a group effort here as far as people contributing stuff. So this one was a 168. What sex is it? It does say the sex right here as a female. You can also look at the inventory, of course, and then we're going to name it Gugog. Now, I could come up with some sort of numerical system or whatever, but I think it's more interesting just to give them an actual name. And it always reads IronMine as IronMu. So we're going to change that. So now we add that to the library, and we can see that Gugog is down here. And if we sort by top percentages of dinos, which I think it's sorted by already, then you can see that this one's in the top 75%, but not up here. So it's not going to be of too much value to us breeding right now, except it does have the highest number in weight, I think. So if we did want to add the weight stat to the dinos, this would be the one that we breed with to get that stat. But for now, the things I'm going for are HP, health, and melee. So we can sort by those, and we'll see. I think it's pretty much already sorted by them. We can see who's got the highest HP, and then we can also sort over here by what they call damage, which is melee, and see who of all these have the highest damage. So this is really useful, especially when you get into multiple dinos and being able to look at them all and compare their stats. Unfortunately, you know, when you can see all this, it drops some of them out of the breeding program, but that's good to know. We can still level these dinos up and use them in the gamma boss fights and see how they do. And if they survive, then maybe they'll be fine to keep going. I mean, it may not take these super Rexes to be able to do the boss fights. But just to show you a little bit more of this program, it can also help you with a breeding plan. So if we go over here, we can select what we want to breed for. So say we wanted to breed for HP, we'll give that a stat weight of 1, and then the rest of these 0. I don't know why that's there. Oop. Or that one. Okay, so we apply new weightings, and it's saying that if I breed Oogie with one of the James's dino, which I think is one of its parents, then I'll have a really good chance of getting something really good. Now, if you look at these, though, they both have exactly the same stats. So unless I get a mutation, which these both already have 7, I put in there too, you can keep track of those in here, although not in as complicated a way as I think is necessary. So we'll talk about that in a second. I won't get much out of this except adding the mutations unless I get another mutation, like I said. Now, you can, just showing what this program does, though, this one I've chose here is the top stats conservative. So that's for the best long-term results, but it may take longer. This one is if you're feeling lucky. And it gives us the same results because this keeps going to the highest level dinos. But if it was a bit more of a mixture here, you could see that it could be interesting. I'm not sure what this one is. High stats, check for best next generation results. Still giving the same results. So you don't have to use this, but it can be very useful just to check out what it thinks is best. So I'm going to put this aside for now. I just wanted to show you that, how I'm cataloging all these dinos. Oh, and then actually I forgot to do one thing with this, which kind of important, is in the library here. We just added that one. That was Gugog. So over here you can edit the stats again. I'm just going to go ahead and copy the name. And then we can go in here. And I'm just going to paste that name in so they correspond. All right, so this is going to take a lot of breeding, and I'm not going to be able to do every cross with you, but I just want to show you how my strategy for starting here. And so we got to talk about mutations a little bit. At this point, you know, we've pretty much got dinos with the highest stats. There are a little bit more combining I can do as far as adding stamina and weight. but these definitely have the highest HP and melee. So the only way I'm going to increase that is with mutations. Now, these ones here on the two sides, if we look at this, they have 7 mutations on one side. So this is on the patrilineal side, and this one is a female. So it's actually got 0 mutations on the female side, which is great. And this one over here, another female, it should be the same thing. It's got 7 mutations on the father's side. Now, once you get up to 20 on both sides, that dino can no longer produce mutations. You can still breed them as much as you want. You can combine stats. But once these both max up to 20, or actually think the way it works is this one's a female, so it has to have less than 20 on the matrilineal side in order to be able to get new mutations from this one. And that goes with whatever male you breed her with. It's going to need to have less than 20 mutations on the patrilineal side. So for the female, this side doesn't matter. So this one's basically still at 0. And for the male, this side doesn't matter. Although, this one is a female. So when we mate these, what happens is all the mutations on both sides for that dino get added up. So this is the female. This would be the matrilineal side. So 0 plus 7 is 7. Whatever baby comes out of here will have 7 on the matrilineal side. If it had some on the patrilineal side, those would get it added up too. So say it had 3 on the patrilineal side, then the baby would inherit 10 mutations, really adding that up more quickly. So it's really important to keep track of the mutations and not let them get over 20 on the relevant sides. Now this one is another one I got from James, and if we look at its ancestry, it's got 0 mutations on both sides. So this one, as the dad, will continue to add 0 mutations. So a baby with either of these two will have 0 patrilineal and 7 matrilineal. So we won't be increasing the number of mutations, and we will have possibility for mutations coming from this cross. Now this one is not as good. It's only got 424 melee, and it's got 14,000 health, but there still is a possibility of not only inheriting the better stats from these two parents, but maybe even getting a mutation. So if I just bred them with each other, well, these are 2 females, but like say over here, I've got pairs, mating pairs. This is a male and this is a female. If I just bred them, I would be adding the mutations up and maxing that counter out faster. So hopefully that makes sense. So this is just something I'm learning, and I'm still trying to figure out how to deal with the mutations, because before when I was breeding, I wasn't paying attention to that at all. I was basically just combining stats, but at a certain point, I had eliminated my chances of getting new stats. If they're good enough, it's no matter. I mean, these ones are much lower, even though they're so high. So Bison must have done something to even eliminate the mutations from the parents. I'm not sure exactly how you do that, but I'm going to see if I can figure it out. But there's only 1 on the matrilineal side. But if I bred these with each other, then they'd have 2, and then they'd have 4, 8, 16. And so that would only take 3 or 4 generations before the chances of the mutations are gone. And I could not cross the generations from them and keep doing this cross until I got a mutation. So that might be a strategy. But anyway, what I'm going to start with for now is I'm going to start with that other strategy, and that's actually how I got Oogie. I crossed these guys once, this as the male with these 2 females. I'm going to just start that right now, actually, just to get it going. So they're hitched to the hitching post, so all I got to do is enable wandering on all of these. So let's just get that going. And I'm going to try a bunch of different ways. And this will probably be a couple episodes. So, at the end of this episode, if you guys have comments, which I'm sure you will, suggestions of how I could be even having better strategies with this, I'll be happy to hear it. And then after an episode or 2 of these, maybe I'll be ready to do one of those how-to everything you need to know making Mega Max Rexes, but I think that's been done by some pretty competent people, so I don't even know if that's needed. But anyway, yeah, these were the product of those. And you can see out of that, I got a 259, a 304, and a 282. Now, I used to think the levels didn't matter, but actually, because they didn't exactly correspond to the stats, but they do actually matter in how many levels can be distributed among the stats. So from this cross, Oogie here was the same level as one of the max parents, so that meant that he got all the same best stats, the same distribution. So if I cross those guys and I get level 304s, I'll know they have the same stats. Now, if this goes up, which I think it will go up by 2 if I get another mutation. If I get a 306, I'll know that we've got a new mutation in something. And hopefully it's in the things we want in health and melee. So we shall see where that ends up with. So that was a lot of information. I hope that that was a decent explanation of what I'm trying to do, and hopefully it was correct. If it's not, I'm sure you guys will let me know. But I'm going to get through this mating. They're going to drop some eggs, and we're going to see what we got from this one. And then I'll do a bunch more crossings off camera, and I'll bring you guys back to see what I came up with, or if something significant happens along the way. All right, so the eggs are down. First, I'm going to go ahead and disable wandering on these so I don't get them breeding when I'm not around. And what a lot of people do is they set up the S Plus hatchery, because what the S Plus hatchery will do will just collect these eggs while you're AFK. I think maybe even while you're offline. So rather than having to do one mating at a time yourself manually, you just leave them on wander and come back and find 20 eggs in the hatchery nest, and then breathe them all up and check them all out, which is why I often see like 20 death messages at once flashing on the screen. So over here, I've got a very simple setup. I gotta find, I got some gas in there, so that's good. Just a generator and a couple air conditioners, just the bare minimum to order to hatch these eggs. I try to do it with campfires. I want to make sure not to eat it, so I have to hit O. And not my use key, which for me is R, which most of you would be E. So I'm going to let these counters run down. I'm going to go grab some meat, and I'll meet you for that part. Okay, these are just about there. We got just 1% left. Hey, we got a baby Rex and a baby Rex. Oh, well, look, we got twins on that one. So I can see already, I got to imprint on these guys real quick so they don't wander all over the place, that we got 2 that were lower levels, the twins, unfortunately, and 1 that is exactly the same. Where'd he go? Here it is. So unfortunately, none of these are that great. I can keep the one that's the same levels. Let's get them all over here and get them some food. I do have the S Plus nanny running, so to imprint them, we got a bunch of honey for her in the last episode. So anyway, yeah, this level 304, you can see is going to have the same stats as the other ones. It's not imprinted yet, so it's not as high. So this is going to be the 16,000 health and the 516 melee. So that's worth keeping. Could be part of the forces, but I'm going to put it aside, and then it won't be... I'm going to continue the breeding program in order to try to get more mutations. So you can see the ancestry, and what happened now is I've now got the 7 mutations over here, but I did not increase the overall number of mutations. So if this turned out to be a good one that had the mutation I wanted, 1, I'd be able to get the mutation, but 2, if it becomes the part of the breeding program, this number would still be as small as possible. So that's my strategy. So it's a little counterintuitive. It's not as simple as just breeding the highest ones with the highest ones, but I'll see how it goes. So I'm going to do a little bit more of that, and I'll bring you back to see what happened. And I just want to show you one other thing I'm going to set up for this is that these 3 of Bison's high-level ones are all female, and then there's one male. And these are all the ones that have 1 or 2 mutations each. And I want to breed them with a high-level one that has 0 mutations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this male that I just used that came from James, and I'm going to breed it with its pair, basically. One that has pretty much equal stats with it, but also 0 mutations. So decent stats, but not the highest level. And I'm going to go ahead and hitch her over here and breed those two together. And maybe I'll get something even better from them. Maybe not, but I'll get another higher level dino that still has 0 mutations on both sides. And then I'm going to use that product to mate with those 3 females over there. And just so I don't use all these other ones as well, I got to look through all these ones that are the product of my taming and start breeding those together and see what's the best I can get out of that with the fewest unnecessary mutations registered, the highest number of good mutations. But I should clarify, because okay, that I wasn't explaining that as well as possible. Basically, you want good mutations, but you don't want to do that additive thing with the breeding where it doubles the number of mutations without actually giving you new ones, which is kind of complicated. It's sort of a clumsy part of breeding with Ark, but one that I am just learning to work with. Okay, there's her egg. Let me turn the wandering off on her. Let's grab that egg. No way of knowing what it is until we hatch it. But basically what we're doing with these is we're setting up a base breeding pair that has 0 and 0 mutations. And you got to have a base breeding pair to breed back to, like I said, to not increase the unnecessary number of mutations in the lineage. All right, we'll see what we get. Okay, the baby just hatched. Wow, we got a level 307 from that, which is not expected at all. I've turned off the nanny real quick so that I wouldn't get any imprinting yet, because that could mess up this. So let's go ahead and add that one into the extractor. See if we can get useful information from that. So this one is bred. Imprinting is at 0. Let's read the values. Okay, and we'll see the level distribution we got. So we got 50 into health, which is pretty darn good, and 50 into damage. And then some of those levels may have gone into other things we don't want to. So let me get a name on this one real quick. Let's look at I'm going to just generate a name over here. Find Paklog, Mugujog, Ibso, Vumuvuo, Quat, Gizixax, Waba. Here, we'll just name this one Waba because I can handle that. So let's name it that. And I like to put the level in here, so it probably records it in here, but this just helps me. Oh yeah, and this is going to be an IM one. A little bit of bookkeeping here, but not too bad. And then we'll give it the generated name just to give it some individuality. It always messes up my name with the OCR, so we'll change that. And I should have just left these all Iron Mew, Mew, but I'm going to change that too. Okay, so that's in there. And then we're also going to add the parents. So the mother was this one with 502 health, or excuse me, 502 melee and 292 level. And the father was this one, the 282. So now we can add this to the library. I think we've got everything in there. And then if we go to pedigree and find Waba right there, I messed up previously, so I just got to eliminate that one. We can see what happened. So from that, it looks like it got the health, the best health. It did not get the best stamina, and it did get the best oxygen. The best, well, the foods were the same. It got the best weight and the best of the damage. So we did get some levels into other things we don't care about as much, but that's all right. It's still a better Rex all in all, it did get the best damage. So this one is definitely a better Rex than we started with. And, oh, we don't want to do that. You always got to save. And then we'll just minimize it. Okay, so that's coming along. Okay, and lastly, we can look in here and see that it still has 0 mutations. So we've got a better breeding mother for any high-level males we've got right now. So anyway, I think that's more than enough for today. I wanted to do more, but just that initial explanation took a while. Hopefully that was clear. And like I said, maybe eventually I'll do a more concise breeding tutorial at some point, but I don't know if there's a need for that out there right now. And I still have a lot to learn. So I'm going to keep going with this. There'll definitely be an episode 2 of the breeding. And I'll probably mix it up because I want to start getting some artifacts too. So we got some caving adventures, some dungeons to do. I want to do the Life's Labyrinth here as well. And all kinds of things to do coming up, both on this map and on the other maps. And there was plenty of other projects I wanted to do on Ark too. There's so much to do. So little time. But I'm going to get this episode out. You guys let me know what you think, and I will be back with more soon enough. Bye-bye. Oh, and thank you for watching until the end of this episode.